I was going to say placemat, but you can actually make a placemat with this pattern too. So we're going to pull her up in a little bit. But before we do, I wanted to do some shout outs to some of our friends here. I see some familiar names already. Brian, do you want to go ahead and pop some up? Sir Robin the Chicken, you've been joining us every week. Thank you so much. Good morning from Washington State. Thank you so much. Chris, good morning from Florida. Celine, Arizona. Linda, Texas. Awesome. Lisa, Wisconsin. Good morning, everybody. Harry Dan, that's a familiar face. I know that. Good morning. Good morning. Puerto Rico. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Rebecca, so nice to see you, Rebecca. She actually joined on our TikTok live the other day and she's like, I'll be there. So we appreciate you following us on all our different platforms. So thank you for that. From Thompson Station, you're nearby. You're just our neighbor. That's awesome. Hello, hello. Well, what is everybody going to be doing for Memorial Day weekend? I just realized that it's Memorial Day weekend coming up. So, yeah, I said to my husband, I was like, hey, you want to go camping this weekend? And he started laughing. And I was like, why? Why are we laughing? And he's like, do you realize what weekend it is? And I'm like, no. And he's like, it's Memorial Day weekend. He's like, you're not going to get into any campsite without booking way in advance. And I'm like, oh, darn. So I'll have to figure something else out. But I'd love to hear what everybody else is doing. Oh, I see on my comments here. I'm going to put this one up, Brian. We're going to give a shout out to Becky. Oh, you already saw it. Perfect. She's a friend of Kourtney's from church. And I can see Courtney in the background going, hi. I love it. That's cool. We've got some friends. Oh, visiting a soldier's grave and and place a flag on it. That's wonderful. Yard work and gardening. Nothing, working on a quilt. Well, that sounds wonderful. Yeah, we definitely have to remember those that we lost and we appreciate their service for sure. So, all right. Well, before we pull up our friend Courtney, we are going to share a little commercial here about our upcoming event. We have our Sew Creative Live National Sewing Machine Day. It is June 13th. So it's right around the corner. It is going to be a really fun day with a lot of sewing machine education, demonstrations, different maintenance tips, all sorts of good stuff, including, of course, special event pricing and a bunch of giveaways. So I know everybody gets really excited about our Sew Creative Live because, again, we are going to be giving away for the grand prize a Triumph, a Baby Lock Triumph, which values at $7,500 by itself. So we're going to be giving away over $10,000 worth of prizes that day. So we're going to share a little commercial for you, and then we will get to making this mini brick road table runner. Live is back for a special one-day virtual sewing event celebrating National Sewing Machine Day. The event is hosted by me, Tricia, with Sewing Parts Online. We have partnered with some amazing educators to bring you a jam-packed day full of sewing machine demonstrations, including embroidery, sergers, and quilting machines. Plus, sewing machine maintenance tips, fabulous special event pricing, and let's not forget giveaways. One day only, and we're going to be giving away over $10,000 worth of prizes. Let's have some sewing fun, all from the comforts of your home. I hope that you guys will all join us for Sew Creative Live. Again, right around the corner. So why don't we go ahead and get Courtney pulled up, Brian, if you don't mind. Hello, Courtney.
So nice.
How are you doing today?
Good. Me and Carl.
We'll have to have you introduce Carl. I think we have Courtney and we have Carl. I think that needs to be a little story. Do you want to share how you name things?
Oh, I name everything. It helps me. Actually, that's Taco. You can't see her really well. She's my dog, but she came down and hopped on the couch and I'm like, well, we're just going to go with this right now. I do name things. It kind of helps me when I'm working along and I'm a little quirky like that. But Carl is actually one of a set of 6 lamps. I was telling you guys on the podcast that my parents have Lady Liberty and Uncle Sam, and they have 2 at their house, and I've named all of them, but Carl and Mr. Poe are at my house, and my husband hates him. I was like, no, I love Carl.
Carl's awesome. I'm so glad that you introduced me to Carl.
Yeah. Hi, Dad.
Hello, Courtney.
Hi, Dad. So
So we are going to have a lot of fun today. I'm actually really excited to kind of give you the reins. We've been leading the projects, but you're going to take over today and show how to make this awesome pattern. I know you've been practicing a little bit, getting familiar with the pattern. So what did you think about it?
It's a unique pattern. I won't say I like it or I don't like it. I think you can play with a pattern in a lot of different ways and make it do the things you want to do. So we're going to talk a little bit today about fabric selection, especially on this pattern. I think that's really important. And we're going to talk a little bit about variations. So how I can take a pattern that I got and make it just a little bit different so it suits my needs or suits the fabric that I got. That way, you have a little bit of flexibility with things. And I got some different fabrics to show you. I do have one cut up that we'll sew together, but I'm going to show you just kind of some different steps as we go along, all the way through to completion, except for binding, except I am going to show you how to do a turned binding on this one. I think we can do a turned binding.
Why aren't we going to see binding, Courtney?
Because my mom does my binding.
I just love that so much.
I've got like a pile of things over here that's going to my mom's house tomorrow when I go see her.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So,
all right. Well, I have my project over here partially done, so I might be sewing along, but I will be in the background. I'll be watching the comments. If anybody has any questions, I will shout those out for you, and we can just get right to it. But before we turn it to you, Courtney, and I do want to mention anybody that is following along, if you need the list of materials, they are on our Facebook group and they're pinned right at the top. You'll see all of the details that you need. Now, it does, you do have to use a pattern, so that's not included, but you can always get it ordered and then you can follow back on the playback of this video because we will share it on our YouTube. So ask questions and I will be keeping an eye out. So I'll let you take it away, Courtney.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so welcome to my messy abode, and that is Taco. Wait, I always get confused on which way is which when I'm on video. It's backwards. So you guys know when I cut stuff up and do things, because the way I do my camera, it's backwards. So my cousin asked me the other day, she's like, "Are you left-handed?" I'm like, "No." It's just the way that the video works sometimes. So Taco decided to come down and snore along with us. She promised not to eat anything. If you ever met Taco, she used to eat lots of things. Okay, so this mini yellow brick road pattern is super cute. And I did it in a couple of different fabrics so that you can see. The way the pattern calls is to use a charm pack. I will tell you, if you use a charm pack, it will be kind of scrappy. So this is a version of that pattern with a charm pack. And I used this fun vintage fabric that I really liked. It's not really old. It's pretend old. So it works, but I will say if you use a lot of busy prints like this whole charm pack was this way, it will get pretty busy pretty quickly. The other thing to think about with this pattern is a directional fabric, which I will tell you, actually, it's funny that Becky Klein is on here because Becky Klein is actually who introduced me to the word directional fabric, because we were working on a quilt. She was putting a quilt together and she goes, "This fabric is directional. You have to cut it differently." I'm like, "What's that mean?" That's been like 2 or 3 years ago. But anyway, directional fabric means that things point one direction. So for example, see all my chickens on this? The chickens go one direction. So when I fussy cut out all these chickens, you can only lay them one direction. When you lay out this pattern, you're flipping the blocks around. So if you sew the blocks together before you lay out the pattern using a directional fabric, you will have a bad day and do some seam ripping. Or you may just have to not care whether or not your chickens are upside down. Now, speaking of my chickens, nope, they're upside down. Ironically. So this is this pattern, except I varied it because with the chickens, there just was too many chickens and I didn't like it. I started to lay it out and I'm like, "Ooh, this is bad." And it was the one I was going to demo for you guys. But what I did is I added in solid blocks. So this pattern is nice because at the end, it tells you what your finished block size will be. Right there. And then you can go back in and I was like, okay, if my finished block size is 4.5 by 4.5, which all quilt patterns, all sewing patterns aren't made alike. So this one gave me some nice tips on my units. So it's 4.5 by 4.5. I was able to add in some solid blocks. And I was able to use this really fun. I had a mini charm pack of these Motabella solids. I don't know if you've ever seen Motabella solids. Sorry, backwards. The Motabella solids have these little hash marks in them. That's so hard because it's backwards. So they have these little hash marks in them. They're really cute. So I had this kind of multicolored one, and it looked super cute with my chickens. And then I just hand embroidered in those little stars in it, just so it gave it something, because the blocks made it kind of plain in the middle. So just so you know, when you lay this pattern out, you can pick however you want to do it. You don't have to follow a pattern 100% of the way. You will have to make some variations. This one, I didn't have to make very many variations because I did the same layout, the same distance for everything, but I just added in the solid blocks. This one, it was making me crazy. So I just made it smaller. And then with my extra ones, see, I have these little extra blocks. I will say that's one of the reasons I actually really like this pattern, because I do like these cute little blocks that it makes. And I am just going to make these into some little, not cup holders. What are they called?
Have you done mug rugs?
Mug rug. So I'm going to make these into little mug rugs. So then I can give it to somebody as a gift and it'll all match. And it'll be super cute. So if you were watching my TikTok this week on the chickens, I was so frustrated with the chickens. I was going to give it to the neighbor that has the rooster that likes to rooster in the morning out here. Ooh, it's wonderful. But now I really like it. So I might give her something different. Like let the dog chase her rooster or something. So we're going to go through this whole fun thing and I will show you the next thing. All right, so this is a fat quarter friendly project. You can do it with fat quarters. You can do it with a charm pack. Like I said, if you do it with a charm pack, the risk is, this is that charm pack I was using. There's so many patterns. It'll end up looking super scrappy. You can add in mini charms because some of the blocks are 2.5 inches and that makes it super awesome. So if I don't want to cut everything up and I want a little scrappiness, I can do that. You can use like a fat quarter bundle and do it that way. So now that we've kind of talked about all the fun variations and things you can do with the quilt or the runner, I'm going to talk with you a little bit about how to read this pattern. So it's actually super well written. I cannot complain about this pattern in the least. It's very well written. I did have some trouble cutting up my charm pack, and that was probably all on me, but it is pretty well written. It's easy to read, easy to understand. The thing that I liked about this, because it's a charm pack, it gave you the cuts on a charm pack here. However, it also tells you how many of each one of these that you need. So I made myself a little list. And the little list tells me what are all the things I need. So I needed 2.5 inch by 4.5, and I needed 15 of those. And I needed 30, 2.5 by 2.5, and I needed this. So that let me go in and really rethink how I was going to do this design on the runner, because if you're just doing it off of a charm pack, you're just cutting up a charm as you go. You're like, oh, just cut this charm up. And that's what I did the first time. That's what I did when I made this one, which is like scraptacular. But it is a lot. So when I did it the second time with the chickens, I started to really think through, okay, I have some upside down and backwards. I don't know why it's so difficult for me today. I had some of my chickens are 2.5 and some of my chickens are 3.5. And so I started, or 3, not 3.5. So you can kind of start thinking through your pattern. So that leads me to the next topic. When you're picking your fabric for this, know that if you pick a design or a pattern on every single block, it's going to be scrappy. It's just going to look a little bit more like this, like the pattern looks on the front of the thing. It'll look a little bit more random. What I liked about the fabric that they picked for theirs is It's all black and gray and white. And then there's some little blocks that are dropped in there in yellow. And it does show you in this pattern which ones to make yellow to match the front. So that's actually super handy in this. Not that I follow directions that quickly or that closely. So when I was looking at it for this next round, and I'll show you the fabric we picked in a minute, I wanted to pick something that was not directional because the chickens were hard. So like this is not directional. That's a fun little thing. I do have a directional that I could put with it. So I could drop in some little things and make it very 4th of July-ish. You see, this is just a scrap, which that's the fun thing about this pattern is if I don't want to make it the full length, I don't have to, and I can just use some scraps. And then I'm going to mix in some solids. So that's one option. Taco has to sit there with all my fabric. This is another option. And this is leftover from, we have a thing at our church called MOPS, which is Mothers of Preschoolers. And the MOPS ministry is just the moms of preschoolers get a moment just to come hang out with other moms, and we take care of their kids, and then we always make a craft. And so I had picked up these fat quarters at the Walmart of all places. Who even knew Walmart had fat quarters? So here are my fat quarters. And so I could do this one, and I could use this. This would get a little busy, but it would still be pretty. And I can either use this as my 2.5-inch block, or I could use this as my 2.5-inch block and just kind of cut over it. Does that all make sense to everybody? So we're going to do the first thing that we do when we start sewing is to iron and press. So we're going to angle this down. Hope you guys, I can still see you. Can you still see me? I like to use this. It's Starch Savvy. It's just the one I have. Everybody's always asking me, do you recommend one? I just have one. I've never used them prior to using Starch Savvy. And so this is the one I have. This is a June Taylor product. I like the way it sprays. It kind of gives a good mist to it. When you starch something, you're going to let it soak for just a minute. Just let it sit there. Don't get too excited. I always get excited and hi everybody. I always get excited and I always want to make it kind of steam, but I'm just taking it over it now, and it's going to pull out those wrinkles. It's going to make it a little stiffer. And this is my Aliso iron that all of you guys know. Her name is Lucy. We'll use Ethel a little bit later. Ethel's the mini version of Lucy. But when you iron it out, just make sure this is really well pressed. When you iron it out, it gives it just a little bit of firmness. It's not stiff. I used to think it was going to be stiff, like, you know, like our hair used to be in the early 90s. Do you remember that? I don't know, Tricia, you're not that old. But when in the 90s, like we'd spray our hair up as high as it would go, it's not going to be stiff like that. It's going to be just kind of a loose stiff, but it makes it so it cuts a little bit better. It makes those fabric fibers just kind of all come together as one little community. So it makes it easier to work with, is the long and short of that. So you want to press all the fabric that you're going to use before we cut it up. So I am going to cut up just a couple of these so you can see how I cut it. You can see this is just a scrap. And I wouldn't be able to make the whole thing with this fabric, but I would be able to make some of it. So I'm going to starch this one too really quick while I'm talking. Does anybody have any questions? Or am I doing such a good job of explaining everything? There's no questions.
You are doing a wonderful job, Courtney. I do have quite a few people saying that they do love the 4th of July theme too. And then they also say that they're loving the flower fabric. So
yeah, it's fun. Those are great options. I pulled all sorts. I will tell you, last night I went kind of fabric crazy. If you can see my couch, there's fabric everywhere because I just started pulling fabric. I was like, ooh, I like this. Ooh, I like this. Like I pulled this one with the little sewing machines. This was one of my favorite lines.
Oh, that
Loved
is
it.
so cute.
And adorable. That's a Riley Blake line. This is actually a little hack if you are a shopper of all things fabric. So this is a pillowcase kit, and it's a directional, which means you get more fabric. So when these go on sale, I buy the heck out of them because it's like a whole yard of fabric and it's got a little accent fabric. So you can always find something to do with it.
You just gave me an idea. I think we'll have to do the Sewcial Circle and do some pillowcases and do different finishes on them because I love doing pillowcases and you can always use them. So We do have a question about your iron. So the Liso iron, we will put a link in the comments for you for those that were asking about that iron, because that particular one is really awesome. We have the same one, even in yellow.
Do you really?
Yeah, we do.
Yellow is the best color. They have pink and blue and all sorts of things, but I like yellow. I did see a leopard print one time, and I was like, who did that little tattoo on their iron? So let me give this just one little bit more press. I was pressing and talking, and I bent my fabric over because I was being lazy and didn't move it. So, okay. All right, I think I got it. All right, so you get to travel with me now over to my cutting table. Oh, that's my hand.
Perfect. And while you're traveling, Courtney, I'm going to answer a question here. I seen it just a second ago. Estelle, she was asking if you could use Terial. I'm assuming she's talking about Terial Magic. That would be unnecessary for something like this. That makes it really stiff. That stuff is really cool. It actually works as a stabilizer for embroidery. And yeah, but for this, you wouldn't need to make it that stiff. So, all right, I'll let you keep on going, Courtney.
Okie dokie. So we're now at my little cutting station. So if you guys could kind of see, here's my kiwi back behind me, and it is kind of messy. I'm waiting on new doors down here. So if you see the blanket down there, that's just covering the air from coming in. But this is my kiwi back here, and we're now at my kangaroo, my Joey. You kind of look down. We're going to angle down, and I'm going to show you some cutting. Sorry, you're a little bit upside down there. All right, so I told you I'm just using scraps because I'm only going to cut out a little bit of this because actually all the pieces are already cut out for us to use. I did want to show you really quick, just so you make sure you understand what a non-directional fabric is. That's non-directional. Those little doggies are going all sorts of directions. That would be a super cute one. We're not doing that one though. All right, so we're going to just do a little bit of cutting. Now, I told you guys this is just a scrap, and I want you guys to know you can always use your scraps. I have bags and buckets of scraps. I'm just cutting that piece off for fun. But I have bags and buckets of scraps, and the bags and buckets of scraps are very valuable to me. I'm just going to cut off my selvage. So if I have new sewers quilters on, the selvage, when you hear somebody talk about the selvage, this is the selvage down here. This is just this part that hooks onto the machine when they're printing up the fabric or rolling up the fabric so that you've got it. And this is maybe going to be a little bit wonky, but I'm just going to cut it up really quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about when I say cut 2.5 inch blocks or cut 1.5 inch blocks. So for this one, I'm grabbing my piece of paper, but on the little blocks, I think you guys can all see this. So on the little blocks, you have one unit that ends up having a 4.5 inch block and then two 2.5 inch blocks. Let me show you really quick what I'm talking about. This is my 2.5 by 4.5 inch blocks. And then it needs a 2.5 and a 2.5. Now, some of you are like, that doesn't make sense. So 2.5 plus 2.5 is 5, right? Except I'm going to lose some in my seam allowance. So it will all even out in the end. So when you're cutting things up, just kind of be thinking about that. So from this one, I'm going to cut a 2.5 by 4.5 inch thing. And I'm going to use a strip cut ruler. This is one of my favorite inventions of all time. Okay, my son just brought me my favorite thing on the planet. Shameless plug for my Sonic iced tea.
I love that. Brian just gave me some Red Bull. So if I'm over here going crazy, you've got your caffeine, I've got my caffeine.
Yeah, that's my guilty pleasure. I go once a day to Sonic and I get an unsweet iced tea.
I'm originally from Minnesota, and when I moved to Tennessee, I had never heard of sweet tea and then also unsweet tea. Like, it just was something I wasn't aware of. I was aware of sun tea, but not sweet tea or unsweet tea. Now I've been taught.
I was going to say, you got to say it too. You can't just say, I want tea. You got to say, I want unsweet tea.
Yep.
So here's my favorite part on this ruler. So you're always with a strip set ruler. This is a shape cut by June Taylor. Stripology is a super popular one. This is the one I own though. So this is the one I use. So you're always kind of left with this. There's always an end that's uneven when you're cutting up fabric. You fold it over, there's always a little bit of an uneven edge. So like you can see it on this side. So always pick the side you want even, line it up with the 0 on your strip cut ruler, drop your cutter into it and cut. And that's going to cut off and make it straight because I've got it lined up here across the top. So my fold, and that means I'm going to have a straight to that fold to this thing. So if I've got it lined up straight, if I've got it lined up straight since I'm looking in 2 places. This is why I pre-cut everything, because I knew there was potential that I would be talking with y'all and I would cut something up wrong, because that's what happens every time I do a live. It's like, oh, I cut that 1/4 of an inch too big or small or whatever it is. So when you're using a strip cut ruler, here's the cool thing about it. So I need on this one, remember I went back through and I figured out all of my little blocks, how many I needed of each one. So I need 30 20 by 20s. I need 15 2 by 2s. So that's the little block in the corner of this block, which is going to go throughout the whole pattern. So I like it that I've cut out things that are matching and they'll be the same throughout the whole block. It's less random than the other way. So this is a 2 by 2, 15-inch block. So I'm going to come over here, and I know I don't have that much fabric because remember I'm using scraps on my cut up here, but I can definitely get 15 2 by 2s out of this one. So I come over and it has a 0 here. These go every 1/2 inch, which makes it super awesome to use, right? Because I can do every 1/2 inch. Now, if you have a 1/4 of an inch or something else, I think there's a way to do it, but I don't do that. I just use my 1/2 inches and my 2s. So before I cut, I'm going to recheck. I'm doing a 2 by 2, doing a 2 by 2. Remind me sometime. My husband doesn't want me to share the story of the guard is off, but it is funny. And I might have to share it because it is funny. So you just drop the rotary cutter down in the line, and I've got my 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. And then you got 2 more is 6. All right, so I'm going to take this last one because I didn't cut it 2 by 2, and I'm going to set it over here. Now I've got 3 2-inch strips here, and I know my end is normal because I cut it at the 0, right? So I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to line them all up here on my thing again, trying really hard not to mess them up while I talk to you guys on my ear pod. All right, so we're going to lay them all out. Now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm still this direction, but here's my 0. I'm going to line up that cut end of my fabric on the 0. And I'm going to bring it down. See how I'm bringing down my little black line to line up with the top of my fabric? Now, some of you are purist and you're like that. You could be eerie. You could be wonky or something like that. Yes, I could. But for the most part, I won't be. So I go with it. Sometimes you just got to send it. That's what my son used to say when he was driving. It always made me nervous. So I'm just cutting every 2 inches again. And I will end up with, put this down, pull these off. Ha! I didn't cut right on this one. I forgot one. Nope, I just missed one. There we go. So I ended up with 2-inch blocks. I don't know what I did here. Maybe I didn't press it. So then I end up with all these 2-inch blocks. And all I did was very simply flip that strip ruler. So I'm just telling you, if you don't have a strip ruler, it's pretty life-changing. Because I was never one that wanted to cut up little blocks. I was always like, I got to find a solution to this because I don't like to cut up little blocks. Not real big on sewing little blocks. But, you know, when you have them for a pattern, you got to cut them up and you got to make them. So see how easy that was to cut those up? This is like, whoever thought this up was a genius, a wicked, stinking genius. So
agreed. Also, we just threw a link in the comments with, or for the Stripology ruler. So,
okay.
Okay, and Brian said the regular one is out of stock, but the mini and the large, those are available right now. If anything is out of stock, just a quick note, you're more than welcome to place the order for it. That's going to secure your place in line for the next time it comes in. Just a heads up.
All right. So I've got these little blocks. I've got a bunch of these little blocks. So I had to make 15 of those. And then I have to make different sizes of different ones. So I'm just going to cut up the blocks that I would need to make one of the blocks, just so you can kind of see how I cut. And then we're going to start sewing things together, because I'm going to sew on Marcia today. We talked about this. I'm going to sew some of it on Marcia, and then I'm going to show how cool my table is. And I'm going to show that Jolene is actually just resting inside my table right now. So we'll have both of them up there, but to do the stitch in the ditch, I'm going to pull Jolene up here in a little bit. So we've cut up our little blocks. I'm going to show you on one more. This is going to be an interesting one, because see these big flowers? Whoop, you can't, because I didn't angle my camera back down. See these big flowers? So if you don't care where they fall in your pattern, then it doesn't really matter. But I care a little bit. Now, she said the big one. Sorry, I didn't angle that down well enough. So you would be able to put the big one over the whole expanse of this. I don't have, mine's not that big, but this one is amazing for that. So I'm going to actually fold my fabric in half just to make mine work. Now I'm going to show you how to do the 3-inch. Now I didn't cut my selvage off this time, and I'll show you why. I'm just going to bring my 0 down to the end here, line up my line. I'm not going all the way to the selvage. I'm going to come out a little bit just so that I for sure do it right. And I'm not going to move my ruler like I just did. That was bad. Right on live TV. I don't know if you guys saw that. I did. And it's not that far off, but I'm going to fix it because it bothers me. Slow as she goes. Yes.
People are really responding to the Stripology ruler. You're joining us for So Creative Live in July, and we still haven't worked out what we're going to give away during your segment. So Tricia and I were like, we should give away one of these Stripology rulers during your segment. Is that what you think we should do?
Sure, whatever. It's your stuff, man.
All right. We're going to give away a Stripology ruler during your segment.
That's what we're going to do.
Sorry, that sounded very like non-committal. Yes.
Love it.
I did not mean to say whatever. I was more like trying to make sure I didn't cut myself. Okay, so on this one, we're going to do a 3-inch. Now notice if I leave this where it's at, this is my 3. So that's, I would cut right through, bring my camera down just a little bit more so you guys can see it. Sorry. Other direction, Courtney. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slide my ruler. So here's my 3. I'm going to slide my ruler over just a little bit. And I'm going to kind of line things up. So this isn't exactly fussy cutting, but it's kind of fussy cutting. So I'm going to cut off the end there, and then I'm going to cut at the 3. Now, instead of just going 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 all the way down, I'm actually going to pull this out this time, because you see, I'm trying to get those flowers, and I got it on the other side. So I'm not going to do it the same way. I'm going to slide my ruler or slide my fabric, because I'm using part of my cutting table for this. And I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to try. But see, notice how now, that's why I'm not just cutting, because now I'm going to come again, and I'm going to come to the 3. If I cut on the 3, I'd be right here. So instead of doing that, which would be fine for this one and not for this one, but I'm just going to come in just a little bit. I'm going to lose a little bit of that flower, but gain more of the other flower, and just line it up real good. So I'm only going to lose a little bit of this first flower when I do it this way. Some of you that don't like that, that's okay. My runner. I'm just kidding. So I'm going to come in like that and cut. So then I'm just losing a little bit of each of the flowers, which is okay in the way that this lays out. But it lets me kind of feel in control. But that's why I really love this ruler. And it is so helpful. So I'm going to take it this time because I didn't grab my other thing, but I wanted to show you. So I'm going to take it. Oh, sorry, Taco. I dropped the ruler on Taco, y'all. Poor Taco. Okay, so I'm going to take this ruler here. And you guys know now I'm addicted to washi tape. I'm going to take a piece of washi tape because I need these to be 3 by 3. Well, my ruler is 4.5. So other people have done little TikToks to tell me how to do this different, and it's fine. This is how I like to do it. I'm trying to find a fabric that'll let you see that really well. Lay it on my paper. Maybe you can see it. Okay, that's easiest. So just take your tape and go to the 3 and come here and tear your tape. And then I just tear my end off. Washi tape is kind of like gaffer's tape if you've ever painted a house. It comes off and it's cute. Somebody was like, oh, you're spending too much money. You're spending too much money. I'm like, you know what? Little things in life make me happy. So I put on my little bit of washi tape there down to a 3x3. Now I can take my little bit of washi tape on top of my flowers, and I can either do it like I could go on and do it just like this if I wanted to, but that's why I cut these strips out, because it was a lot of work to cut it straight from the fabric. So I actually had to cut it into strips when I did the little chickens. Okay, we're going to grab this one. Now my washi tape, so these are already 3 across because I cut these into 3-inch strips. So I made it easy on myself. And remember, so whatever you're trying to capture in this picture, you're going to lose 1/4 inch. So if I lay this down like this, there's my 3 and my 3. If I lay this down, I'm going to lose 1/4 inch. I'm going to lose a little bit of that design. So I'm just going to pull it over. I'm going to try to make this flower here my focal point. And this line is centering up for you. There's a line right in the middle of my ruler. This is just an OmniGrid square ruler. And I'm going to pull it over just a little bit. Now remember, I don't have to worry about my top and my bottom because I'm already there. I'm just going to worry right there. Slice it off. Now for me, if I would have had my spinning mat up here, I didn't pull it up here though. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to lay it back in place. I'm going to do it again.
I am loving your washi tape trick, Courtney. That's awesome.
I love washi tape.
Very cool.
So I cut it a little fat on this side because what I was telling you guys earlier is you're going to lose 1/2 inch. So let's just see really quick what 1/2 inch would be. And I can use my board just to show you. So I'm just going to lose about that much when I sew on that side. So I'll lose kind of right there where that leaf is. Just fold it so you can see it. And it still looks good. Because that's why you do a fussy cut and you kind of move it around to make it hit the right spot. And everybody has a different process. Everybody has a different method. For me, this works great. And it lets me use the few of these that I have. So I have this one and I have this big dog, but I don't have to have all of them. I can just have the few that I want. So it's a little life hack. Look, it fits right in. It's like a bank slot. So cool.
Courtney. Okay, Courtney. Brian said we are going to do a short commercial break and then we will scooch on to the next step of the project.
And now a word from our sponsors.
So
My
last
news.
week we had talked about the wish table, which today I actually set it up so you could see it connected to my little machine here. And this is going to give you that nice working surface. But just a reminder, right now we do have the special where if you get any So Steady table, you can get the light stick for just $10 and turn it into a light box. So we wanted to share that video with you this week and give you a visual so you can actually see what it's all about.
That sounds cool. So it's like a light box underneath there.
Yeah, so you can do tracing and everything and just turn it into a light box. And this one here, the one that I have today is the wish table. And this has a cool little drawer. So you've got all your stuff nice and handy as well. And they are also the ones that create the inserts that you have with your Kangaroo and Joey.
I do. I have my insert right over here because Jolene's down below. So that's awesome. Well, thanks. That's cool.
Well, thank you for allowing us to take a little break. Brian mentioned Deb Porter as well, correct? Oh, is she on right now? Oh, Deb, welcome. We just have to do a little shout out to Deb. She was with us last week and she did the little mushroom block and then she came into our store and showed it to us. So we got a picture with her. So we just wanted to say thanks again for popping on with us. And she's from Dixon here, from our area.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Deb, do you want to stop over a little bit later? I hope that you have your project that you could show us because we would absolutely love to visit with you some more and maybe have you come back to the studio. Yeah, Brian's like, let's give her a studio tour.
Oh, fun. How fun is that?
See, let me know if you are available this afternoon and hopefully we can have a little visit. But anyway, Courtney, I'm sorry. I'll let you back to it.
No, it's awesome. So we're going to do a little layout now. One of the things I did want to mention is some of these blocks, I would say all of these blocks, except for one. So let's remember back to fussy cutting. All of these blocks, except for one, could come from a jelly roll as well, because all of them are either 2.5 or 2 by something, except for one block, which is a 3x3. So if you did want to use a jelly roll of some kind, like I have this fun one that I'm going to use for Christmas this year. If you did want to use a jelly roll, you could do that as well. So I almost forgot to tell you guys that. I set all my stuff out. Then I was afraid Taco was going to try to eat my jelly roll. So let's do a little layout because the layout matters a lot with this little pattern. And, oh, there's Taco. She's napping. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to use my directions as I do this, but I want to talk to you guys a little bit about something as we do the layout. And we're doing the layout first on purpose because once you lay it out, you can do a bunch of sewing, chain piecing at the same time, and it makes it run really fast, but you got to figure out how you want to lay it out. So the first block, now the way the pattern says to do it is to do all of this, which has 2.5-inch blocks together first, and then go back in and fill in the other way, which is actually how I got the idea just to do some solids in the middle. So I was like, oh, that would make more sense. So I'm not going to actually use that one. I'm going to use the full one because it's easier for me to follow. So basically you're flipping this unit, but when you sew this unit together, it's always going to be the same. So you're always going to put one fabric on the right and one fabric on the left and then sew it to this block. So this unit, so I'm calling this a unit, is always the same. And so is the other one. It's just how you flip it around when it's on here. That's why when you're doing this with a directional fabric, it actually gets a little complicated because you almost have to sew the blocks together as you go. When you're using a non-directional, like this one, and this is beautiful fabric. I just started following this gal on the Instagram. This is a Moda fabric. It was the songbook line by Fancy That Designs. And I just started following her on the Instagram. And oh my gosh, I love her. If you all know her, the designer, tell her Courtney loves her. Courtney loves her fabric. I love all of her new stuff coming out. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of show you. So then this one is the 3-inch block. And the cool thing about this one is these always, the easiest way to remember this one is I actually did these when I was putting it together, as this was a unit and this was a unit because that's how I sewed it together. But this little block always touches this little block. So it's never going to be like this. You could do it like that, but it's not how the pattern's laid out. So, and like I said, patterns were meant to be adjusted by those of us that love them. So then the last one is like, oh, I did this wrong. Actually, I kind of like that better, but okay, I'm going to do it right just because I'm being right. And then this last one is this. Now remember, this will be like this. That's the only way I can remember how that lays out. And then I'm going to do another row, and then I'm going to show you how you can do some options in this layout. So hopefully I'm not boring y'all to tears with this, but this is how I spend my fun afternoons, is playing with fabric. Where's my 3-inch blocks? That's what happens when my kids touch my table. Okay, so there's a 3-inch. These go like, and then what did I tell you guys before? I always have the blue dot touching the 3-inch block. That makes these a little bit easier to think about. So then the next one is like this. And then remember, they always have to go the same way. So the easiest way to do that is like this. So I can remember which way it goes. For me anyway, once I sew them all together, it actually gets a lot easier when you're laying out. But for right now, I want to show you how we can make some variations. That's a bad cut. And I just thought when I was putting this together, I was trying to play with some things that would make it just be a little bit more visually appealing to me. So this one, the solid is here, the blue dot is here, and then my little pieces go like this. All right, now that I've got a couple of these rows together, I could do a third one. That actually helps a little bit with the visual. Let's do a third one really quick while we're talking. So now, hold on, I don't want to mess this up. Isn't that funny? Like I don't know about y'all. Are y'all able to rearrange fabric or rearrange furniture in your house without moving the furniture? I am not, which is funny for a quilter because a lot of quilters can just automatically do that, but I have to lay it all out ad nauseum, which kind of makes my husband crazy. I used to do it on the dining room floor at home when we lived in our other house and I was sewing in my dining room all the time. Now I just lay it out down here, or I hang it on the wall, or I do something like that. Let me get this last one in, and then I'll show you how we're going to do a little bit of variation. So a little blue block helps me. Oh, this is the same. So here's this, and then here's this. Okay, so the thing to think about with this, I put solid blues in here, and then I have these little, and I know you guys are like, that's a hot mess. It's actually pretty interesting when you think about it. So I put solid blues in here to try to give us a good visual of how things lay out. Now I can take, because I cut last night, I can actually do the 2.5s in the matching fabric to that little star and see how this changes. This is what I love about playing with patterns, is I can go, oh, that changes that. Oops, that's upside down. Missed one, didn't I? See how that changes? Isn't that cool? So I can then change the whole aspect of this just by adding some blocks. I can also make it kind of funky and do some, use that. Remember I told you just to use the charm pack? I can lay out some variation in here and put in some different things to make it look even more varied. And see how different that just became just by changing a few little blocks? It's scraptacular again, but it's not super scraptacular. It's just a little scraptacular. So that's kind of what I was thinking. So I was wondering, before I sew this one together, did you like, I should put it back down so you can see it. Do you like it with a little bit of scrappiness? Do you like it with the extra stars? Pull these off so you can see it. Or like this. Or do you like it just with the blue? This is the interactive part of my presentation. I know which way I lean.
I love you, Courtney.
That's the way I used to teach school. I taught school for 1 year and I was like, this is totally not for me. But I was like, and this is where you respond.
You're a wonderful teacher. I like blue personally. What do you like, Brian?
I like Scrappy, and so does Tammy.
Tammy likes a little scrappy too.
Scrappy's kind of fun. And this is beautiful fabric. Oh, DJ likes the stars. DJ does.
Laura likes the blue pieces too. Team Laura.
Laura's from my church. We did a layout for one of her quilts. She is making up a quilt pattern right now. It's called a crayon quilt. You guys ever heard of that? A crayon quilt is they go to Quilt Guild and you draw 3 crayons and then you have to pick 3 fabrics with those colors and then you have to make up a design and then they donate the quilts or they give the quilts away. It's kind of fun.
That's cool. I have to pop up this comment really quick from Caroline. She said, my OCD says symmetry. Caroline, I have to tell you, I had some issues with this particular pattern for that very reason. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to follow the instructions and it's going to look cool. No. And so I actually am pleasantly surprised. It's definitely not my norm, but it's a lot of fun still. And we're going to go away from the symmetry.
It is not. Yeah, I'm not necessarily very OCD. And if you ever watch my TikTok, you know, I'm like, that's going to work. You know, I'm just kind of like, well, it's good enough. You know, it's done is better than perfect. But this pattern, if you are an OCD person, this is not your pattern, or you're going to have to adjust it. But that's why I went with just me picking, and I find it easier with 3 or 4 types of fabric. But the way this pattern lays out, even if you do that in your head and you're like, this will lay out better, when I add in that star fabric, it kind of goobers itself. I don't know. It kind of, for me, the star fabric becomes too heavy, even though I absolutely love this fabric. I cut the end off, so I actually don't know what it is, but I was like, oh, so I'll use that for something else. But I love that. Now I keep solids on hand, especially solids that I like the color. I'll either buy a fat quarter, a roll up, or I have bolts of solid fabric too, because there's certain solids I like. This was one of my favorite lines. So this was just a roll up. You guys know a roll up is like if you go to a quilt shop and they get to end a bolt, they won't put that end of bolt back on unless it's Hobby Lobby. I was at Hobby Lobby the other day and I was like buying some fabric and she took like, I don't know, it was 3/4 of a yard and rolled it back on the bolt. And I was like, girlfriend, what are you doing? But I didn't say anything because I was just happy to get what I got because they were on sale. So, rabbit. Anyway, so when you're doing this pattern, just know that this is not going to be OCD friendly. This is definitely not that pattern. You can lay it out to where it's OCD friendly. When I laid this out, I got to let this hit a little bit more symmetrical, fun ways. I did have to go back in and flip some things around, but I was able to make the chickens lay out the way I wanted them to lay out and make the little blocks lay out the way I wanted them to lay out.
I appreciate that you pointed out the fact that it can be OCD friendly, because you are right. You can definitely make it work. But if you do it as the pattern states, it's going to make you twitch a little bit.
Like this. You'll go away.
Just like
and it is really that's why I spent so much time at the beginning of this talking about picking your fabric out, because with this pattern, that makes it everything. This makes my brain hurt, and I love vintage fabrics, but it's just so much, right? Now, had I taken some solids or something that wasn't, there's patterns here that have a high saturation of pattern. So it's got a lot of moving parts. And then there was patterns here that had kind of bigger scale. And so less saturation of pattern. When you mix them together, had I done this differently, I would have used just this one and made them into 3-inch blocks. I would have not cut it up the way the pattern said to do. I would have played with this a lot more, but it was from a charm pack, and you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit from a charm pack, right? So, all right, let's get this put together. So when I'm sewing this together, I am going to just sew together these units. We're not going to sew together all my little parts that I cut out, or we'll be here for all day. But I want to show you a few things on my sewing machine. I am going to sew on Marcia. Marcia is my little baby lock. Make sure I don't grab the camera this time. See how fun it is? I'm actually spinning you because I am on my, now you can see my mess and my sleeping dog. This is what happens when I get excited about fabric. I just throw it on this couch. When we moved everything around, my husband was like, look, you're going to have all this place to sit. And I was like, look, I'm going to have all this place to throw my fabric. But
no judgment here. I shared a story this morning about our mess behind the scenes. I don't know if you caught that this morning. It was
I didn't see it
in here this morning.
So this is because I'm on my little arrow sewing chair here, I can slide around pretty easily around my sewing room, which if you're a TikToker or somebody that does videos or things like that, I will just tell you this arrow sewing chair is thebomb.com. It's pretty nice. It slides around really nice. I'm actually going to put you guys on a different tripod really quick because I think this will be easier. Now you can see my drink and my mess. Okay, so, and I'll talk over my shoulder and then I'll zoom in. I'll move this around and you guys can see it. So this is my Baby Lock Zeal. So when I was working with Tricia and Brian I don't know, it's been, now I can't fit. That's not a statement on my weight. That was a statement on how my chair was fitting. So several months ago when I started working with Sewing Parts Online, I'm losing my words. When I started working with Sewing Parts Online, I said, I have a lot of beginner sewers that like to follow me and are always asking me for an inexpensive starter machine. So there's kind of this fear in sewing. Like when you start sewing, people throw out their fancy dancy machines, and a lot of people have really investment machines. Now I would call Jolene is about my level of investment, and she was $999, I think, when I got her from y'all. I might have got her on sale, but anyway, I think that's what she is right now. But Jolene is a TL 2010Q, and you'll see her here in a minute. She's a straight stitch machine, and I will tell you she's life-changing. Once you sew on a straight stitch machine, every other machine, you're like, meh, that's okay. But it's not Jolene. So, but I wanted to find a machine that I could recommend to people that was a beginner level machine, was pretty inexpensive. So if I just wanted to learn to sew, if I had a kid that wanted to learn to sew, if I just wanted to basically test the waters, this would be not an investment machine, but not like a cheap machine that, is a throwaway. So there's a difference. Like sometimes you can buy a machine that's so inexpensive, it's just going to fall apart and it's not going to work for a long time. So Tricia helped me out and helped me find a machine that I love. And I got myself this little Baby Lock Zeal. My friends at Sewing Parts Online helped me. So her name's Marcia. And she wasn't named for a long time because I didn't sew on her very often. But I was at this sewing retreat, and she's my travel machine is what I call her. So I was at this sewing retreat, and this little gal named Marcia, who's from Washington State, which literally she drove like 4 days to go to this quilt retreat. I was like, what the heck? But she sat across from me, and we just had such a good time, her and her friend Donna. And I said, I'm going to name my machine Marcia, because everybody kept coming up to her and going, Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. And she hated it. Like it was fantastic. And so I go, okay, the machine's named Marcia because you've had to suffer through everybody going, Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. So anyway, the Baby Lock Zeal, it does everything you need. I mean, like you can drop a zipper foot on this. You can drop I've got a 1/4 inch seam foot, and just kind of watch. I might have to zoom in just a hair here so you guys can see it. But Tricia taught me this word. It's a low shank machine. So you hit the button on the back and my foot pops off. There's my foot. And then I hit the button. Tricia's probably cringing because I'm leaving my thread in here. I hit the button on the back and I drop my foot and my foot pops back in place. So it's on. It's super easy to load and unload your foot on this machine. I love this machine. So the other cool thing about this machine is you've got A through L. I'm not sure how many that is, but A through L stitches on it. And I used this on my little retreat and I was so excited because I never sew anything but a straight line, but I was making like a tea towel or something. And I was able to put kind of a decorative stitch and it was ridiculously easy. So that's just a few little things about this machine. My RFL thread, I'm a fancy thread addict now. Thank you, Tricia. I was fine with my unfancy thread.
You are so welcome. Once you go, you can't go back.
That is a true fact. It is true fact. I cleaned Jolene over the weekend because I knew we were doing this. And I was like, what the heck? There is no fuzz in this machine. So, okay. So I've talked enough about my little machine. You change your stitch length. You can change your stitch. You can change your tension. And you can even change your presser foot pressure, and you can make it to where you can free things up. I don't do that piece. Let's just now sew a few little blocks. So I'm going to move you back over to this other one because it's easier on me for sewing because I want you guys to see stitching. I don't know. Does that look good?
That looks great.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to first take all of my little two pieces and I'm just going to go with the blue this time, even though I like a scrappy. I'm going to go with the blue because I think that's what Laura said. And Laura is my buddy from church. So I'm going to take the two. I'm not pinning. We are not pinning, people. Don't come after me. I'm going to drop my foot. I've got my 1/4 inch seam foot on this right here. You have to get one. On the Baby Lock machine, they come in a little set. It's so cute. It comes with its own little case. This machine comes with this foot. And I love my machine, but I'm just going to tell you, I don't love this foot. I don't even know. It looks like a bad elf shoe or something. But this one is not my favorite. This one is my favorite because I'm a quilter and not a clothes sewer. So order the extra feet, get the 1/4 inch seam foot. If you don't have a 1/4 inch seam foot for your machine, I swear it will change your life. It will change your life and you will love me forever. So I'm just going to sew. And the other thing I'll tell you is when you buy this is like a $350 or $400 machine, just know it's going to sew like a $350 or $400 machine. It's going to sew great. It sews wonderfully, but it's not Jolene. So I'm going to sew one. I'm going to bring another. Tricia, I'm not even paying attention to time at this point. So if I'm like way off, you need to tell me.
You don't have to worry about time at all, Courtney. Just do your thing. I do have a question. They're asking if they can see the 1/4 inch seam foot up close.
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
If you don't mind.
There's me. Oh, hold on. Sorry, Brian. Let's see. I think I can actually flip can I flip the camera around on this bad boy?
You can within the settings, I believe. It should allow you to. Well, and the other part of the question is the 1/4 inch seam foot the same as the stitch and a ditch foot? So they are different. The stitch and a ditch foot has a guide in the middle, and your needle is intended to be directly behind it. And it will spread your fabric just enough for you to stitch directly in between the seams. So your thread is essentially like disappearing. Where the 1/4 inch seam foot, it allows you to put your fabric right up to the seam and you get a perfect 1/4 inch. So it's perfect for a quilter. Courtney's over there moving all about.
I know. I was like, I'm so sorry, Brian. You know, I did all that and then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just going to like drop it off the machine and bring it up here.
There you go. That'll work.
See that?
There you go.
So
awesome.
It's kind of got that. Let me see also. I have Jolene's foot in here, I think. Maybe
yeah,
not.
And you know what? I'll make a note. I'll share some pictures on our Facebook too.
But it just has this little guide. This is what you want. So it's kind of easy to see. unless I can't
There you
figure out
go.
how to work. There we go. So here's the guide. So your fabric butts up against the guide as you feed it through, and then it stays right on that 1/4 of an inch. And I will tell you, one of the, I wouldn't call it aggressive, but there are believers on the TikTok that are very passionate about that. It gives you a scant 1/4 of an inch and not a full 1/4 of an inch. For one, it just gives me what I need. So it is a nice 1/4 of an inch, but I will tell you, take your machine and test it out and make sure it works for you. Mine works for me. So that's kind of the thing I would recommend as you do this. So I'm going to finish sewing a few of these together. Let's move this over here so you guys can see while I'm sewing. So I'm just grabbing, I was chaining it, but I had to cut it because we were talking. But I'm grabbing all of the 2 pieces first. And I'm going to do all of my 2 pieces first. And then I'm going to sew them to that 2.5 by 4.5 inch piece. Got 5 million cords down there. I think I've got one more here. And I'm just putting them together. Now, it really doesn't matter because they're all the same. I can just sew whatever side comes up, and I'm just going to push them together. Notice I didn't lift my foot. I'm just keeping on. The one thing I will say that this machine lacks that Jolene has that, you know, makes life pretty easy is it doesn't have the scissors. And I get so used to rocking my foot back. Jolene has this feature where I can rock my foot back and it cuts for me. So it makes my life easier.
I have a funny little story. So Alex was sewing on the TL here in the studio, and she just busts out laughing. And I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, what am I doing? And I was like, I heard the rocking of the foot control and the thread cutter, and I started laughing. I'm like, you're cutting the thread, aren't you? And she's like, I must be. She had no idea that it had that feature. So I'm like, it takes a second to get used to, but it is a phenomenal feature. I love that on the TL foot control.
You know, I had a DX7, a Juki DX7, which is a computerized machine. Oh, I like a mechanical machine. Some people like a computerized. I like a mechanical machine. Me and Chris from Rose City Originals, we like mechanical machines. So I had the DX7 prior, and I had it programmed where if I rocked my foot back, it backstitched. And then if I pushed forward all the way, or it was to the side or something, there was a different movement I made to get it to cut. And so when I set that up, this took me a little bit of practice because I'd rock my foot back and I would think I was backstitching and I was cutting. So so I'm going to just iron these open really quick, and then I'm going to sew the other piece to it. This is Ethel, and Ethel's been on for a hot minute. She's a little warm. I'm spraying this with flatter spray before I go. You don't have to. Flatter spray just smells good to me. Some people don't like it. I like it. What I'm doing right now is setting my seams. So the first thing I do when I sew these little pieces together is I iron my blocks together, and then move Ethel's cord. When you open them up, so setting your seam is just like this, and I do wiggle my iron. It's amazing on TikTok how many people have opinions about how you do things, but then, you know, I've sewed with my mother before, and she has an opinion about everything I sew. Even though she's lovely, she might be watching. Mom, if you're watching, I'm sorry. So you just open it up and iron it flat. Open it up. I'm going to grab it again. Now, I could use a little tool so I don't risk burning my fingers, but I have tried over and over because somebody sent me one to try, and I was like, I never can remember to use it. And I'm like, I'll just burn my finger. See how nice and flat that got? It's super nice. So, and it smells good. So I'm going to leave that. Now, these all go with these. Oh, I missed one. Dagnammit. Just 1 second, real quick. I gotta sew one more together. I forgot. I missed one. It was right in the middle. So this little bad boy. It's like a runaway. And if you can see, I hope you guys can't see underneath my table, but there are so many cords and things right now because I have, you know, 2 sewing machines and stuff. All of them are down there. I only have like 1 outlet. in my basement. So let me do this one really quick. And then I'll show you how we're going to do the next. Now I am going to pin the next one. That's why I'm bringing y'all down here to this little thing. Set my seam. I dropped one.
I love seeing your setup in action here with your Kiwi and your Kangaroo and Joey. That's awesome. Looks like it's working well for you.
It works super well. And normally I wouldn't sit with my knees like this, but I'm trying to make sure the camera angle works. But I'm just going to open it up again. Oops. Crazy. Okay. Okay. So then once you get these units together, this is where you want to make sure they're all facing the same direction. Doesn't matter which direction it is at this point, but you're going to make them all face the same direction. And that's how I do it, so that I can make sure I remember where I'm going and what I'm doing. Because remember, you want these according to the pattern. You don't have to follow the pattern, but according to the pattern, making sure that's only one piece of fabric. According to the pattern, you want them all facing the same direction. Now I'm going to use my little, what is it, Circle? I think you guys sent me. I like it. I like it, and I like my little tiny mini chicken. There's a string on it.
I love the mini chicken.
But I feel kind of like a masochist with my chicken, because I'm always like, here, I'm done with that pin, and then I feel bad. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. He doesn't have a name. Like, I feel that bad about poking him with a pin all the time, like I'm a voodoo doctor or something. So he's a lot of fun. So a little mini chicken and my little thing. So I'm just going to pin these really quick, and I'm pinning the sides. So there's no seam to attend to on this one. So there's no seam in the middle at this point. I'm just going to pin the sides, and we're going to have them all together. And then I'm just going to sew them real quick, and we'll do the next block. So the next block's super easy. This was pretty easy. I mean, did y'all think you could do this as a beginner? I mean, this is a great practice run if you're a beginner. Well, there, left my little thingy. It's a great practice run if you're a beginner. It's kind of like sewing a jelly roll quilt. You know, you got to practice your 1/4 inch seams. And that's one of the ways you do it. This is the same way. But see, all my 1/4 inch seams are nice because I use that 1/4 inch seam foot. So we're going to do this one, and then I'm going to sew these strips together.
Courtney, Sherry's asking, what's the name of the spray that you're using to set your seams?
It's called Flatter Spray. Smells like oranges. I don't know if you guys have this. I use it all the time. I should have.
Oh, it's by Soak, and we're actually going to be having them on for So Creative Live in the future. So yes.
Oh, good.
Very
okay.
cool.
So if I use yuzu, which smells like oranges. I did use scentless. I don't like scentless. I'm like, I want it to have a smell, but I think some people, they get like allergic reactions or something if it's got a scent or something. So they made a scentless one. Okay. So I'm going to zip these together really quick, and I'm going to chain piece it. Now, this is where a Circle, I think that's what a Circle, my magnetic one, comes in handy. I just lay it there, and then when I'm going, goodness, too many cords down there today. When I'm going, I can just drop it, and I can just start the next one. The other reason I pinned this is I wanted to sew the same side every time, because I didn't want them to be upside down. It may not have mattered, but for me, I didn't want to risk it. So when I'm doing this, it's hard to sew and talk. I'm usually pretty good at talking. Darn it. Okay, so this is okay. So I am chain piecing, but I fed this in a little wrong. And so I'm actually going to stop, and I'm going to make sure it's right. I know this is kind of crazy because it's pretty close to a 1/4 inch, but I will tell you on this pattern, you want to make sure you're at your 1/4 inch, or at least a consistent seam. You could do an 1/8, but you'd have to do them all at an 1/8, and that would be fun. So we'll get that one going. That one didn't want to behave. I can just tell you that one did not want to behave, even through the process. So I have a funny. So if you ever watch me sew, we may never get done with this. If you ever watch me sew, I put my finger right up underneath it almost as it feeds it through. And I was doing a live or something on TikTok, and this woman was like, "You're gonna sew your finger off," and I was like, "I might," and she was trying to be helpful. I shouldn't make fun. She was trying to be helpful, but I played slow pitch softball for a long time. I played softball for a lot of years. And I was always the catcher because I got to talk to everybody that came to the plate. I was like, I got to make a new friend. Every time somebody came to town, I was like, oh, hey, came to town, came to my base because I was there. And so me and the umpire, I became really good friends with the umpire through the game. But I would get up right underneath the batter, whatever softball, whether it was slow or fast or whatever. But I get right up under the batter and I'd lean my head to the side. And it always made people nervous because they're like, you're going to get hit with the bat at some point, which is true. I could have got hit by the bat. But it's kind of like, that's what it makes me think of when I'm doing my little sewing thing is I'm just feeding it in. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just getting fed in. So anyway, I'm just ironing these really quickly and then I'll do the next block because I want to have them all completed for y'all. Because the next block I do have to pay a little bit more attention to as we go. All right, so we got our first set of blocks done. They look super good and they smell good. They smell like oranges. Okay, so now we're going to do the other blocks. Now there's only 3 of these to do, but like I was telling you, I think you should sew these in units. So let me grab you again. You're going to come with me. Hello, spinning around my room. Oh, okay. Pull you down a little bit. I have all of these tripods everywhere, just so you guys know. That's what I'm messing with. That's how I move everybody around. So I sew these in units. Let me put my camera down here really quick. So this is done. I'm going to lay those there. Now I'm going to sew these in units. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into a unit and this into a unit and this into a unit and this into a unit. Because if not, there's all this thinking I have to do. So I'm just going to sew it because it doesn't matter what side of the square this one goes on. I'm just going to sew it into place. So I'm going to make this a unit and this a unit. And I can just kind of lay them on top of each other so I don't lose it. I'm actually going to flip this around really quick so I don't lose that piece. Make this a unit. And this is kind of good. You can do this when you quilt as well. Like one of the things a quilting friend that I have does is they label all of these like with letters and things like that, which I can see the value in that. That just seems like a lot of work, but for this one, and we're not making a whole one on this. We're just going to make this little partial today. When you make a runner, so there's runners and there's table toppers. And runners just mean that it's longer, and table topper means it's more kind of square. And if you are a quilter that doesn't want to make a whole quilt, a runner or a table topper, it's very fulfilling. It feels like I'm actually sewing and getting things done. I'm just going to leave my camera here and you guys can watch me sew from this angle. So it does get it. I don't know about you guys. Are you guys more on the I got to quilt a whole quilt kind of thing? Or are you more on the I've got to do a table topper or something like that? I'm going to sew these together. This is something my mom taught me too. See, I use my thumb, my fingernail there, and scratch my nose because it started itching as soon as I did that. I just use my fingernail to get it to line up on the corner. And I try to make sure it's as close as possible on the bottom side. Then I feed it in. Just like that. Now I'm going to do my next one. I hope you guys are sewing. I hope you're sewing something. That's always my fun thing when I do a TikTok live is I always ask people what they're making, what's under their foot. Oh, so what's on their sewing machine? And they're always like, oh, I'm making a quilt. I'm making a table topper. And we just kind of like to listen to one another as we sew. It makes it kind of fun. It's almost like you're sewing with somebody, even though we're in different houses. So I'm sewing all these units together. Oops. Tricia, I kind of love that you're a family business. I've shared with you before, but I grew up in a family business, and we never had a meal. We had a business meeting, and we never had a vacation. We had a business trip, and we we were always talking about business and work. And one of the reasons I got into sewing was because, you know, my brother had passed, and he and I worked together for, I don't know, forever, 20 years almost. And well, probably longer than that. As long as we've both been alive, we've been together. But we were two halves of one brain, and he was the square and I was the squiggly line, and that's how we made things work. But so I kind of am in love with that you guys are a family business, because that was just a precious time for me to be with my family. We all had that in common. We had the Bible, we had God, we had Christ in common, but we also had that in common. So we always had something to talk about. So, all right. And this is the best part of chain piecing. As I said, it can be a necklace. It can be a garland. It's fantastic. So I just messed up my hair, but I'm just going to trim these apart really quick. Then we're going to iron and we're going to put them all together, and you'll see how easy this is once you sew it together like this. I mean, that's why I did this in units, because that makes this part of the blocks go a lot easier. Because the first time I did this, I was sewing each individual one and I was making myself crazy, like totally crazy on that one. So I'm going to move you around one more time. We're going to come over here and see Ethel. I don't think I have any more cutting to do after this.
C. Lombard says that you have to give her a warning when you're going to do the spinny thing. She's like, dizzy.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody. It's just me wanting you just to stare at me in all of my glory. So I'm setting that seam. I learned this on TikTok. I had never heard of setting the seam, and I'd seen some TikTok about it. And then I was like, what? As soon as I did it for the first time, I'm like, what have I not known about life? I mean, it was one of those moments. Like, I must be missing out on lots of life's little wonders here. So set the seam, open it up. Now on these little white blocks where there's the white or the off-white, I'm ironing to the dark side. So that means I just did a video on this because people were like, what's the dark side? It's not Darth Vader, but ouch, ooh, that was good. Did you see me do that? So if I was to iron this open, if I was to iron it this way, then when I put that down. When I put it like this, there's this potential, you can almost see it because there's a light there. There's this potential for a shadow in the back. So a quilter will iron to the dark side like this. Ooh, that wiggled, didn't it? That wiggled. It was not happy because I played with it the wrong way. When a quilter says that, it's so that we don't have a shadow. Now, you know, a lot of people don't, some people don't. It also gives us a direction. So you're always ironing the same direction when you're doing it. This one's not happy ironing to the dark side, I'll just tell you. It was a little angry at me for that. Do you guys ever say something and it makes you think of like a movie line in your head and you're trying really hard not to say the movie line that's in your head because nobody else is in your head but you? So that's what happens to me all the time. So now I got to make these blocks to where they lay out the same. Isn't that, I'm sorry, but that is actually really beautiful. I love that fabric. I love the star fabric too. I'm going to have a lot of fun because after I do this one, I might make more than one thing. So just a little fun little fact for y'all on this stuff. You know, you see a pattern. Oh, weird. That's one of my weird pins. I don't know where that one came from. But we often see a pattern and it says, this is a table runner. And you're like, okay, that's a table runner. Or it says, this is a placemat. And you're like, okay, that's a placemat. And the funny thing is we've assigned what it's going to be based on that pattern, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can do it how you want to. And it's kind of like that in life too. You know, a lot of us grow up and you're told this is what you're going to be, or you're good at this. And I had a math teacher growing up and she told me I was not good at math. And then I was like, all right, I just guess I'm not good at math. And I just kind of went through life like that till I got to college. And another math teacher said, who told you that? You're actually very good at math and you just need to sit down and learn it. So I did that. And I think sometimes we get in our mindset that we're told we are one thing, and when really we could be something else. And God has lots of paths for us to take. And, you know, he has one that he's chosen for us, but you can look at life and kind of get in a rut. Like, I thought I was supposed to be a CEO. That's not my calling anymore. But just think about that with a pattern. You don't have to make it like the pattern. This pattern, it says you can make it a table runner, a placemat, or a baby doll blanket. And after I looked at it, I'm like, you know, just about any table runner or any table topper or any pillow pattern you get, that block or the main aspect of it could be made into something different. You can make it into a bag by adding a zipper. Not that I like zippers, but you get me, right? So I'm about to spin who wanted me to warn them. Look away. Look away.
Also, Courtney, we're going to have you loving zippers. We're going to get together and do a zipper sew along.
I can do it.
You.
Oh, you people and your zippers.
I've been so scared to install zippers for a long time, and they're actually a lot of fun. So we're going to go with and zippers and get together.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, bless my heart. Marsha just had a fit. Marsha, not on TV. It was my fault.
Totally fine. Last week I was having issues too. We were doing troubleshooting along the way. I was changing needles, and we were making it work.
Well, we'll see. It may just have been how I had her set up. I don't know. We'll see if she'll do it this time. If not, I can also pop up Jolene.
We do have a Facebook user asking if the Aero chair has good support on your back.
Yeah, it does if you sit back. I sit forward a lot, so I don't even know it's there. I lean forward, but if I just sit back, I want to see my gut here, but if I lean back, it's actually super comfy. It doesn't look comfortable. Like when I first saw Chelsea had it, Jolene's decided to be fitty right now. We're gonna try her out here. It doesn't look like it would be comfortable, but it is. It is very comfortable and it's very nice on my back. So I'm afraid Marsha has had a moment. So instead of trying to change her, I was going to switch over to Jolene anyway here in a little bit. So let me switch to Jolene real fast. This is fun. You guys will get to see how this works. So This is my kangaroo table. Jolene's hiding. You have to sing the song though when she comes up. It's like,
I'm gonna let you do that.
da 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 da, like that. Where is she? Oh wait, now her foot's up here. Hold on. I guess I could just unplug her foot. Okay, everybody's in place. Jolene, be kind to me for just a minute, Jolene. She didn't like going. She was like, I could tell. When I put her away earlier, she's like, excuse me? Excuse me? I'm not the star of this show.
You know who I am?
I am Jolene, and everybody likes me.
I love that machine so much. That's my personal machine too. So I'm sitting here, yay, Jolene's coming out.
Jolene came out. I like that she could hide and I could pull her right up too.
Mm-hmm.
I got to change her foot. Okay, so this is Jolene's 1/4 inch foot. And it's easier to see on Jolene because it's a little black little line. I've got her stitch in the ditch foot on because we were going to stitch in the ditch with Jolene.
Yeah, and you were talking earlier about the Zeal being a low shank machine. The TL, Jolene, she is a high shank machine.
Yep, she is. I learned those words from you.
I'm glad I could help you out.
So I'm going to flip. I'm actually going to, whoever doesn't like spinning, I'm going to go slow, like slow-mo. Okay, so here's Jolene. She's a little bit different than Marsha is because she's got one stitch and it's a straight one. But you can adjust Jolene's stitch length here. The biggest part about Jolene that's difficult Oh, I got to put the foot on. I forgot. The biggest part about Jolene that's difficult, the only part that's really difficult, and I don't know that it's difficult, it just, if you're not used to it, it takes a minute, is threading her. But she has this cool little, what do you call this, Tricia? The little...
It's a telescoping thread guide.
Yeah, that is awesome. So she takes 9 things to thread her. You go up and down and all around, and you get her all situated. And you go through all these little hoops and hollers. I love that you guys are watching me. So if I do this wrong, you can say, hey, you missed a step.
Hey, guess what, Courtney? What are the steps that we need to do before we start threading, right?
You have to raise your foot. It's up. The joke is that
story. That was pretty funny.
Well, I thought Jolene was broken, and it was right before So Creative Live, and I was like, oh my gosh, my machine's broken. And I was totally freaking out. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to sew on. I have other machines, but I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to sew on. And I go, oh my gosh, this is bad. And Tricia happened to be on. Oh, I got to turn, Jolene is not on. So I have this fun little light on here, which threw me off. I thought Jolene was on. Oh, Jolene's not plugged in. Hold on. I'm going to plug in Jolene. 5 million cords later. If there's a fire in my sewing room, it's because I have 50 cords plugged in right this minute. There she is. Hi, Jolene. So, all these steps that I forget to do. So I do want to show you. Jolene has a side bobbin, and I was totally afraid of that. But I get these pre-wound bobbins from Filtech. I love them to death. I get sad when I don't have them on my other machine. But I'm going to go ahead and put her in there. I was so worried that this would only take 30 minutes. Get your little thingy there, girlfriend. A little off. All right, here's my tweezers. You don't really need tweezers for this, but I pulled them out anyway.
Bent tweezers are one of my favorite tools to have near me. I love them.
I feel like I'm a doctor. I mean, not just a PhD student, but a real doctor, a medical doctor with them. Okay. Jolene, don't let me down. After I've told all these nice people how wonderful you are. I'm going to take this away really quick because I will step on the wrong sewing foot and then y'all will be like, she doesn't work. I'm like, she does. You're like, what is going on? It's because I'm changing my foot out. All right. All right, Jolene, let's show them how this is done. Oh, do you hear that? She sounds good. She sounds good. Oh, she's such a happy little machine. You know, this machine can go like 25,000 million stitches per minute. I don't even turn her all the way up because I'm intimidated by her. People used to say I was intimidating. They just didn't know me well. Yeah, Jolene, that's how it's done, hun. So I do have washi tape on Jolene. I don't really need it because I've got my 1/4-inch seam foot on there. But I put the washi tape down just kind of as an example one day. My mother loves having stuff on her machine like that. Now I messed her up. That wasn't Jolene's fault. That was mine. But see how much faster she goes? It's just easier. So I get to the end. I'm touching nothing. I just cut all the strings. So then I got it done. So it's just a lot faster with Jolene to sew things together. She's easier to use, but she's also twice the price of that little Baby Lock machine. So if you're just starting out and you just want to try a machine out, get that Baby Lock. She's a good baby little machine. Marsha's a great little machine. She's a great travel machine. I don't know that I'd travel with Jolene. She's pretty heavy. I'm going to iron these really quick while we're talking. So I don't know that I'd travel with Jolene. Sorry, person that gets dizzy. I definitely travel with Marsha. I'm just pressing these open really quick while we talk. I'm surprised nobody's asked a question.
There, Courtney, we actually do have a question about your table, the one that you're at right now. Can you explain the Kiwi a little bit?
Sure. Let me move my little camera thing up a little bit. Actually, sorry, spinny person. Okay, so, okay, you can see it. All right, so I've got so much stuff on it. This part folds out. So when I put this down, this piece will go down. I've got so much stuff on it, it'd be a little hard to do, but I'll show you. This is what happens when I get going for the day. This is why I'm glad I have a couch in here. Look, more washi tape. So this little piece, so much stuff on my table. I hope my mom is not watching right now. She would be so mad. What's wrong with your mess? So this little piece folds down. Actually, this piece here fits perfectly right here. And this little piece folds down on my kangaroo. But this is wonderful. Oh, yeah, I can. This is a lot of layers to move this stuff around right now. So I did have like giant tables. I say that, and then it won't go down. Oh, I have got, how funky is that? I've got pins hanging down here. So I got it hooked on something in the back. All right. Believe me when I say it goes down. It's hooked on something in the back, and I don't want to take my sewing room apart. This piece here comes off. This actually comes with a little mini cutting mat that I put someplace else that I took with me when I traveled the last time as my little side cutting mat. It came with this, which is a pressing mat next to you. And it has these little doohickeys on the bottom, these little feet that hook into the holes so it doesn't slide around. It has these great little drawers in it. And they're not organized. I didn't know I was going to show my drawers. But it does have this one here, which is not organized either. But you can put your spools on it. So I could have more spools. Hear that, Aurifil? I could have more spools if you loved me. So
Oh my goodness, that made me laugh really hard. We're gonna have
so
to reach
sad.
out to Orville, huh?
Yeah, you tell them that I love them.
Well, I do know.
But the drawers are easy close. So when you throw them, they close real soft like that. And then this is a nice one. I think we found out on your show you can fit a serger in here. I actually put Lucy in here. I put Lucy and Ethel in here when I need to close up this whole room. So everything fits down there. It fits perfectly next to this. It makes it like almost a little U shape when I have this all together. This one here that you guys have seen me cutting at, this is actually part of the table. And there's a little unit underneath it that's called a joey that's got drawers in it. And I can show you guys real quick. And we're off target, but it's okay. Let me move these really quick. I'll put these on this one now because this is worth seeing.
I didn't intend to have you to reorganize everything.
Okay.
Go with flow, Courtney.
Courtney goes, I used to run VBS. Let me just tell you, when you run VBS and you work with like 300 kids, you learn to go with the flow. Right, Laura Richardson, if you're still on? All right, so this is my gigantic cutting mat, which I'm okay with. And this piece comes out, this goes together, and now I've got you revealing my other mess. I was hiding all my mess from you. So here's the funniest secret of this whole thing. I've had this, I've been loving it. I have all empty drawers. Can't find a thing, but I have all empty drawers. Well, I guess I put zippers in this one that I've never used. I have all these zippers with intention. So it just makes for a really nice thing. So this is, I think, called the joey, and this is the kangaroo, right?
Yep.
The joey fits in this little hole. So I could pull the joey out and have a separate workspace. I can open this drawer up, and I have this out all the time. Let me just put my little thingy out. There we go. So now I have a big workspace, which is super helpful. And if I was and I will tell you that there's a whole nother piece back here that's against my wall. And this will open up and I've got almost like a whole table that I could use. So if I was really quilting something, like I've watched a few of the quilters on TikTok do, if I was actually quilting like on my machine and not just doing like a table topper or something like that, then it would totally be awesome. So I need to get these ironed real quick. I sewed one together wrong, but we're not going to fix it at this point. Because 14 hours later, Courtney has a table topper done. I think Chris did an entire quilt in like 40 minutes with you guys. And here I am, not able to do a table topper. So, okay, got all my pieces. Now we're going to put, if we can find the pattern, we'll put it back together. I couldn't find the pattern. Okay. So I'm going to put this back together so you guys can see it now that everything's back into the right orders and stuff. And like I said, the reason that you do it like this is because you want to have it to be easy. I'm just flipping things around. So you see how much easier this is to put together now? And I will tell you, one of the blocks went together wrong, and that's fine. It's all good. I'm not going to worry about it right now. But see how much easier this is when you're doing it this way? So I laid it out so I could see how everything would look, but then I'm going to put it back together this way really quickly so that I can show you just how easy that is. It's like half the time because I didn't have to move everything around. But there is one block that's out of place, but we're just going to go with it. It's this one. I don't know that it's going to bother me enough to put back together.
It looks beautiful.
Okay. So when you're doing this, this is the nice thing about this pattern. For us that are OCD, none of these seams match up. So I don't have to do a bunch of seam matching, except when I'm sewing my rows together. There's a couple, but for the most part, you don't have to do that. I'm just going to sew this. Still got my 1/4 inch seam foot on. Zip through it. And of course, it did not sew. Hold on just a second. Jolene needs a moment. Oh, you weren't looking at Jolene. You were looking at the side of my head. Jolene. She's having a moment.
Courtney, while you get that organized, we're going to play a quick commercial, okay?
Great.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Well, Brian said he's going to find that commercial, so I'm going to answer a question in the meantime. I see that somebody was asking again about the spray that you were using, and just a reminder, guys, that is Flatter by Soak.
Well, we just broke a needle.
I did that the other day. Oh my goodness. So we're going to go ahead and go to a commercial while you change your needle, and we'll be right back.
Okay. I don't know how I broke the needle.
I just muted her. There we go. So the reason why we wanted to share that particular commercial is because it is for the 16X series by Qnique. We are super excited. The Grace Company is going to be joining us for a solo on the Sewcial Circle, and we're going to be playing with our 16X Elite, and that's going to be a ton of fun. Also, they're going to be joining us for So Creative Live in July and demoing that particular one. Oh, I'm sorry. No, they're doing that in June, aren't they? Yeah, they're going to be joining us for June. I'm so sorry. June 13th is the demo for the 16X series, and we've got some great prices on those.
So on June 7th is when they're going to join us for the Sewcial Circle, and for that, they're basically going to walk us through step by step how to load a quilt, because we don't have very much experience with it. So they're going to walk us through it. And we are actually going to try to, so it's probably going to, we might not have time to actually make a quilt top. We might do a panel. We have some pretty cool panels that we got from I Need Fabric. But they are going to join us on the 7th for that. And then you're right, on National Sewing Machine Day for a product demo.
Yes. Sorry if I confused you. The other thing is she's changing the needle on Jolene. I was playing on Jolene the other day, and for some reason I was having looping. Oh my goodness gracious. But that was all on me. I figured it out. I had threaded in correctly. So we all do it sometimes. So no concern there. But I wrote down a couple of things that people had mentioned as well. We were talking about the spray that Courtney was using. One that we use here in the studio a lot is the Easy E-Sprayer by Acorn, and they've done a demo on this. It is a wonderful product. You can do a fine mist on your fabric, and it prevents fraying after you cut your fabric. So I know that was a question that I had seen where they're like, can you just use water or should you use spray? So that is one good thing about the spray. It will prevent fraying after you cut your fabric. The other thing, I had seen somebody ask about fussy cutting. So when I had first heard that term, I was like, what in the world does fussy cutting mean? So fussy cut just means that you are cutting out a particular design from the fabric. So you may have something really cute that you want to be selective about. I wish I had an example, but as Courtney had the little flower, that's what she was essentially doing, is fussy cutting, where she was just cutting the little flower out. So that was one. And then the Kangaroo and Joey is the cabinet that Courtney is using today. And then the little setup on the side, that's the Kiwi. The other thing that's really cool about the Kiwi, which I just learned about recently, is that bottom drawer that's bigger than the three above. That one will actually hold a serger. So it's on my wish list. I'm getting the Kiwi. All right. Well, I think Courtney's ready with her needle, and we are good to continue on. How are we looking?
Sorry about that. Woo!
No worries.
That one went pop. I always get nervous when the needle goes pop.
Yeah, that can be a little scary. All right,
Yeah.
we'll let you get back to it.
All right, so we're going to finish this up. I'm going to just finish up this top, and then we're going to call it good. Ta-da. And actually, when I do it this time, I will just tell you, I'm not going to chain piece anything because I want to make sure I'm getting everything laid out the right way. This is the nice thing about the Kangaroo cabinet, is I've got this great little space right next to me to work with. So I'm just putting my stuff together. She is so fussy right now. I think it's because I put her away. I think she got mad because I put her away. I didn't break another needle, but my... Why this won't go. So what's happening, just so you all know, because last time I shared with her what was happening, or Tricia, what was happening, was she fixed it. Because, you know, if you don't know this about Tricia, she worked in customer service for a while. And if you call in, they actually are super duper helpful in the customer service there. So there we go. I'm going to sew this on real quick. So that's row 1. Then we're going to do row 2 real quick. Someone was asking me the other day, do you ever get flustered with your machine? I was like, that's like a normal thing for a sewing person. We get flustered with our machine. because that's why I name her, is because, you know, she's part of my little family down here. And so then I can, you know, we can be mad at each other. We can make up. We can sew some more. But with as much time as I spend down here in the basement in my sewing room, you know, I think that it's important that you just kind of go with the flow if your machine breaks or your needle breaks or whatever. And sometimes we just got to walk away. Like if it gets too intense, I just walk away from my machine for a while and I go upstairs. Isn't it kind of funny? I don't know if you were paying attention when I was sewing on the other machine. It worked fine. It worked great. But this one sews so much faster and so much smoother, even with her little hiccups she's had here a couple of times. She's just awesome. She's wicked good. So make sure we get the last one on. It goes together a lot easier once you make those little units, and then once you make it into blocks, it makes it just a lot easier. Jolene, quit being a pill. I will put you away in the little dungeon there of my sewing cabinet. She just threw her thread out. She's being fussy. So my kids are probably like, Mom, you're still not letting us use the internet? I'm like, no. Jolene. Normally, just so you guys know, I don't have to reload Jolene a bunch of times. Like this. But she's not grabbing her bobbin thread really good today.
Courtney, I've always found that if I'm having that issue, to cut the thread and rethread again. And then
Really?
Yeah, it's so funny how that happens. So we can walk through the process if it does it again.
Okay.
I'm down. I'm down.
Okay. I'm usually pretty good at talking through it, but that's the amount of thread that I'm pulling out right now. And it's expensive thread, RFL, even though I love it.
But it's so worth it.
It is worth it. I will say it is. And the color is great on the RFL thread. I don't know if you guys have observed that as well. Okay. Whew, that was intense.
You did it.
Yes. Okay, we're going to iron it just one time. I just did a TikTok on this this week because I was ironing something. And actually, when you put it together, now I could iron all these seams open if I wanted to. I'm not going to, partially based on time. I do think ironing things open makes it more relaxing. Oh, pins all over the place. But if you leave it unironed, look how much difference it is. It's crazy, the amount of difference. So you're trying to sew things together and it doesn't work out super well.
I saw that TikTok you did this morning, and that was so good. It was such a great example on how it's so important to iron, or why it's so important to iron.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Who knew Ethel was so useful? Ethel is great. I actually use Ethel more now than I use Lucy. I don't want to hurt Lucy's feelings, but I use Ethel just a ton. There we go. All right, we're just going to angle you up real quick because I'm going to put these back together. Make sure I lay them out right. Now, when I do it this time, I am going to pin some seams because there is a couple of places where the seams come together. I'm a big believer in nesting seams, mostly because my mother says I have to. But you nest your seam, and when I say that, I just mean that, ow, that was bad. When I say that, I just mean that one seam's going one way and one seam's going the other way. So I'm going to nest it up here together. Whew. And I'm going to sew it really quick. Not really quick, because we don't want Jolene to get fussy. Still seeing it? There we go. There's my Sonic over there. She did it again. All right.
Sorry, I think we should rethread it.
Okay.
let's snip it from the top.
Okay.
And then pull it out from the bottom. We were talking about this the other day. It's really hard to break that habit of pulling it, all your thread out from the top. Okay, so we're going up and then around and then back through the thread guide. And is your presser foot up at the moment?
It is.
And your needle in the highest position?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
She sings. I don't know if you knew that about Jolene.
And then the other thing that we should do is just double check the bobbin in the bobbin case too, because sometimes you want to put it the thread coming off the opposite direction than it needs to go.
Maybe
That's what I did the other day.
Okay.
And I'm going to grab my bobbin case on my TL so I can see myself do it here.
All right. Here is the bobbin. You want it to be the letter P.
So
Bobbin.
on the T or the TL series, this one, we were just looking at the manual here. It's actually opposite. So if you're holding your bobbin, there you go. The thread needs to be coming off the back.
Yeah, and the magnetic side of the piece goes inside, right?
The magnetic side, yes. And then, so you should place your bobbin in, and then the thread will be coming off the back, and you will bring it forward into that little slit.
Mm-hmm.
And then pull it under into that little notch.
All right.
And then you'll be able to open the latch and insert it in.
Yeah. Well, Jolene, you've had a new thread, you've had a new bobbin, you've had a new needle. There she goes. I think it's so funny that on machines, they get so fussy, like the machine, if you just rethread it, how they're like, oh, I think I'll be okay now. Like, what? I didn't do anything major here. Let's drop that in. Whew. When she gets done.
How we looking?
Oh, we're good. Let's see. We'll see how she does after she cuts. That's what she's kind of been jumping at. So then we're going to do the last one. Praise Jesus. I'm sure all the people watching are like, oh my gosh, she's still sewing. You know, it is funny though, as I was thinking about that the other day, is that because I do TikToks, and so I was talking to a friend, I'm like, I need 3-minute things. I have to do things in 3 minutes. You can do a little bit longer on TikTok now. And I do put longer form video up on YouTube. So like if I do a little tutorial on my page and it's chopped up, you can find the whole version of it on the YouTube channel. But what's interesting is, you know, we don't really think about how much time this actually takes. Like if I would have done all the steps for you, like cutting up the fabric, 100% of this fabric and getting everything together, it takes a long time to put these little table toppers and things like this together. But I think that's why it makes a good gift. You know, we were talking about, we were talking about love languages and stuff.
I was just about to interrupt you. So with this particular machine, you want to pull up the bobbin thread before you start sewing. It has a different type of shuttle system than a drop-in style hook. So you do need to pull up your bobbin thread before you start sewing, and you shouldn't have any issues.
Doesn't want to.
And that's why I love the bent tweezers. They sit by me all the time.
There we go. She sometimes doesn't want to love me.
She's like, I really do love you, Mom.
She is not. She's doing this on purpose. It's like when you take your kids to church, your toddlers, and they're doing bad things, and you're like, uh-huh. My youngest was at church one time, and we used to sit like in the second row, and he was little, and they were doing this. The preacher was praying at the end. It was like Easter service, and the preacher's praying and it's very emotional and all this stuff is going on. And the preacher said something about a kangaroo court. And all of a sudden, this little 5-year-old voice goes, "There were kangaroos." And I was like, oh no. We just kind of pretend. I tried to pretend like it wasn't us, but there wasn't any other 5-year-old boys in the front row. So good. All right. Yay. So now I'm just going to press this so I can open it up and show you. And we will call this is just going to be a topper. So we're not doing a whole runner, but it's so pretty. Actually, I'm glad we did the solids. It looks really good. Okay. Ta-da. So it's super cute. And I will just tell you, because of this pattern, if you mess it up, nobody's going to know. Because it's a random layout anyway. So nobody's going to know. But won't that look cute? Just with a little bit of backing and binding. So very cute. Well, that was a lot of sewing. I won't show you guys how to do a stitch in the ditch, but when I did this one, I did do a stitch in the ditch and it went together just fine. And I did it just like a straight little square stitch in the ditch. And I'm going to have my mom put a binding on it. And this one here, I'm going to just iron on a little fusible fleece on the back, and it will be a great little table topper too. So lots of little projects.
That is super adorable. Well, Brian's going to pull me up here and
Here we are.
I'm like, super. Yay.
Yay. I'm so excited.
We really appreciate you joining us and going through that process. And we are definitely going to finish ours. Somebody was asking if I'm doing mine, and I've got it done here to the rows. So we're using up scraps here in the studio. So these are not
Cute.
my color of choice, but they're working.
They do work. They look really cute.
Vibrant. I am the label person, so I've got mine labeled. But do you want to stick around while we do a giveaway?
Yeah.
We got enough shares, so we're going to go ahead and give away these Ginger scissors. They're the Ginger Trimmers 8-inch. They're really lightweight, so they're not going to hurt your wrist. And Ginger just makes a wonderful product. So thank you for sharing, you guys. We appreciate it. So we are going to move forward with doing the giveaway. So Brian, do you want to pull up the giveaway tool?
Drum roll.
Drum roll. All right, let's see who the winner is.
I think it's funny if Sewing Parts Online won.
We've had to repick before. Congratulations, Gloria. Thank you so
Yay.
much for watching. We appreciate it. Gloria, if you want to just go ahead and email us, you can just email me. It's Tricia at sewingpartsonline.com. And my name is spelled Tricia. And I'll make sure to get this mailed out for you, okay? All right. Well, I think that about covers it, other than if you want to tell everybody where they can follow you so they can get more tutorials and everything.
You can find me on TikTok. I am so excited, SEW, excited, or you can look for Courtney Govro 141. You can also find me on YouTube, which is so excited. It's like, that's my YouTube channel. You can find it there. And then I'm on the Facebook. I'm pretty friendly. If you want to friend me there, I'm pretty friendly. So, and Instagram as well. You can kind of find me all over the place, but TikTok's my main medium. And then I post the full length ones onto the YouTube. Follow me on YouTube. I can't get any follows. That's a harder medium to work with.
It's a little bit harder, yeah. But she's also going to be joining us in July for So Creative Live. So you'll have to tune in for her segment for that as well. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, Courtney. We appreciate you, and we'll hopefully have you back soon.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Have a good one. All right. Well, we love Courtney. That was a lot of fun. So just a reminder, if you're just popping on, the pattern that she was doing is the mini brick road. So this is the table runner. You can make it as a placemat, or like she said, you can make little mug rugs. Super cute. Lots of different options for this pattern. We are also going to be posting some of the product that was mentioned during the live. I wrote down a few of them. The kangaroo and Joey, the kiwi, the small Elisa iron, and also the large Elisa iron. If there's anything else that you would like us to post, just go to our Facebook and say, hey, what's that thing you were talking about? And we'll shoot you a link for that as well. We were also talking about the difference between the 1/4 inch foot with guide and the stitch in a ditch. I'll make sure to post a little article about the difference between the two. Both are fabulous feet. I recommend both of them. They have awesome uses. So I think that about covers it. What you think, Brian?
My mic is off.
Oh, his mic is off.
That covers it, but we'll see Deb at 3:30.
Oh, yes, Deb. We'll see you at 3:30. We can't wait. And you're probably a little further on your table runner than I am. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week on the Sewcial Circle.